I think that the intensity of the protests has changed because of the loss of life. That we've crossed a threshold now where the government is responsible for the death of these individuals, and that causes a wider ripple throughout the country. The key question, in my mind, is whether others from outside, whether it's the European Union or the United States, put increasing pressure on the regime of Yanukovych to come to terms with the democratic process in Ukraine, to come to terms with the protesters. Because if not, I think that he will continue to persist with his violence.
The problem for the authorities surely is if you up the ante too much against the protesters, if you kill them, if you beat them so badly, you send them text messages saying you are registered as taking part in a riot, then in a sense you make things worse because the protesters have nothing to lose. They have to press on to win.
Well, that's exactly right. And I think the protesters know that they are not alone, that there are people around the world, around the European Union, around the United States who are watching what's happening and who are in their corner. So I think they are very unlikely to just fall into submission here. And the threats that the regime has given here really are chilling. They are reminiscent of some of the worst kinds of repression that we've seen in other parts of Eastern Europe in the past, whether it's Russia or Belarus or going back to the days of the Soviet Union.
It's pretty clear that Russia played a very strong role in turning the president against the European Union. Do you see Russia playing a strong role now in all this?
Well, I do, because I think Russia was, first off, influential behind the scenes before Yanukovych's decision to forsake the relationship with Europe and instead opt for the East. That was based on economic and business interests that were benefiting the regime and its oligarch patrons. That in turn resulted in these loan guarantees from Russia to keep Ukraine afloat. And that in turn has led to some of the adoption in Ukraine of the same kind of laws against demonstrations and against protests that Putin himself used in Russia a couple of years ago. So while you can't say that there's a close relationship between Yanukovych and Putin personally, there is an enormous influence that Russia has upon Ukraine, and that the Ukrainian government now feels that they have no choice but to move toward, because they've already forsaken the option to go to the West.